Hey guys, welcome back. It's No Dragmar here, and I will apologize if this looks bizarre. I'm just trying to make sure everybody can hear me, is all. And I will say this, I will read a chapter of the Red Pyramid today, and I hope that you enjoy. And maybe next time, I might read the chapter of Shadow of the Fox. But I will say this. I am testing it out to see on who likes what, and hopefully everybody enjoys. And one more thing before we start. I really enjoy audiobooks with a little music. So if you hear a little music in the background, that's just me. And, well, The Red Pyramid by Riordan. Audio by Snow Dragmar. Chapter 1. A Death at the Needle. We only have a few hours, so listen carefully. If you are hearing this story, you are already in danger. Sadie and I may be your only chance. Go to the school, find the locker. I won't tell you which locker, which school, or which locker. Because if you're the right person, you'll find it. The combination is 13, 32, 33. By the time you finish listening, you'll know what those numbers mean. Just remember, the story we're about to tell you isn't complete yet. How it ends will depend on you. The most important thing, when you open the package and find what's inside, don't keep it longer than a week. Sure, it'll be tempting. I mean, it will grant you almost unlimited power. But if you possess it too long, it will consume you. Learn its secrets quickly and pass it on. Hide it for the next person, the way Sadie and I did for you. Then be prepared for your life to get very interesting. Okay, Sadie is telling me to stop stalling and get on with the story. Fine. I guess it started in London, the night our dad blew up the British Museum. My dad is Carter Kane. I'm 14 and my home is a suitcase. You think I'm kidding? Since I was 8 years old, my dad and I have traveled the world. I was born in LA, but my dad's an archaeologist, so his work takes him all over. Mostly we go to Egypt, since that's his specialty. Go into a bookstore, find a book about Egypt. There's a pretty good chance it was written by Dr. Julius Cain. You want to know how Egyptians pulled the brains out of mummies? Or built the pyramids? Or cursed King Tut's tomb? My dad is your man. Of course, there are other reasons my dad moved around so much, but I didn't know his secret back then. I didn't go to school. My dad homeschooled me. If you can call it home schooling when you don't have a home. He sort of taught me whatever he thought was important. So I learned a lot about Egypt and basketball stats, and my dad's favorite musicians. I read a lot too, pretty much anything I could get my hands on. From dad's history books to fantasy novels, because I spent a lot of time sitting around in hotels and airports and dig sites in foreign countries where I didn't know anybody. My dad was always telling me to put the book down and play some ball. You ever try to start a game of pickup basketball in Aswan, Egypt? It's not easy. Anyway, my dad trained me early to get my dad trained me early to keep all my possessions in a single suitcase that fits in airport airplane's overhead compartment. My dad packed the same way, except he was allowed an extra work bag for his archaeology tools. Rule number 1. I was not allowed to look in his work bag. That's a rule I never broke until the day of the explosion. It happened on Christmas Eve. We were in London for a visitation day with my sister Sadie. See? Dad's only allowed 2 days a year with her. One in the winter, one in the summer. Because our grandparents hate him. After our mom died, our grandparents, had this big quart bottle with Dad. Excuse me. After 6 lawyers, 2 fistfights, and a near-fatal attack with a spatula. Don't ask. They won the right to keep Sadie with them in England. She was only 6, 2 years younger than me, and they couldn't keep us both. At least that was their excuse for not taking me. So Sadie was raised as a British school kid. As I traveled around with my dad, we only saw Sadie twice a year, which was fine with me. Shut up, Sadie. Yes, I'm getting to that part. So anyway, my dad and I had just flown into Heathrow after a couple of delays. It was a drizzly cold afternoon. The whole taxi ride into the city, my dad seemed very nervous. Now, my dad is a big guy. You wouldn't think anything could make him nervous. He has dark brown skin, like mine, piercing brown eyes, a bald head, and a goatee. So he looks like a buff, evil scientist. That afternoon, he wore his cashmere winter coat and his best brown suit, the one he used for public lectures. Usually, he exudes so much confidence that he dominates any room he walks into. But sometimes, like that afternoon, I saw another side of him that I didn't really understand. He kept looking over his shoulder like we were being followed or being hunted. Dad? I said as we were getting off the A40. What's wrong? No sign of them, he muttered. Then he must have realized he'd spoken aloud, because he looked at me kind of startled. Nothing, Carter. Everything's fine. Which bothered me because my dad's a terrible liar. I always knew that when he was hiding something. But I also knew no amount of pestering would get the truth out of him. He was probably trying to protect me, though from what, I didn't know. Sometimes I wondered if he had some dark secret in his past, some old enemy following him. Maybe. But the ideal seemed ridiculous. Dad was just an archaeologist. The other thing that troubled me. Dad was clutching his work bag. Usually, when he does that, it means we're in danger. Like the time gunmen stormed our hotel in Cairo. I heard shots coming from the lobby and ran downstairs to check on my dad. By the time I got there, he was just calmly zipping zipping up his work bag while three unconscious gunmen hung from their feet from the chandelier, their tools falling over their robes falling over their heads so you could see their boxer shorts. Dad claimed not to have witnessed anything, and in the end the police blamed a freak chandelier malfunction. Another time we got caught in a riot in Paris. My dad found the nearest parked car, pushed me into the back seat, and told me to stay down. I pressed myself against the floorboards and kept my eyes shut tight. I could hear Dad in the driver's seat, rummaging in his bag, mumbling something to himself while the mob yelled and destroyed things outside. A few minutes later, he told me it was safe to get up. Every other car on the block had been overturned and set on fire. Our car had been freshly washed and polished, and several 20-euro notes had been tucked under the windshield wipers. Anyway, I'd come to respect the bag. It was our good luck charm, but when Dad kept it close, it meant we were going to need good luck. We drove through the city center, heading east toward my grandparents' flat. We passed the golden gates of Buckingham Palace, the big stone column in Trafalgar Square. London is a pretty cool place, but after you've traveled for so long, cities start to blend together. Other kids I meet sometimes say, "Wow, you're so lucky you get to travel so much." But it's not like we spend our time sightseeing or have a lot of money to travel in style. We've stayed in some pretty rough places, and we hardly ever stay anywhere longer than a few days. Most of the time, it feels like we're fugitives rather than tourists. I mean, you wouldn't think my dad's work was dangerous. He does lectures on topics like, can Egyptian magic really kill you? And favorite punishments in the Egyptian underworld. Another stuff most people wouldn't care about. But like I said, there's that other side to him. He's always very cautious, checking every hotel room before he lets me walk into it. He'll dart into a museum to see some artifacts, take a few notes, and rush out again, like he's afraid to be caught on the security cameras. One time when I was younger, we raced across the Charles de Gaulle airport to catch a last-minute flight, and Dad didn't relax until the plane was off the ground. I asked him point blank what he was running from. He looked at me like I just pulled a pin out of a grenade. For a second, I was scared he might actually tell me the truth. Then he said, "Carter, it's nothing." As if nothing were the most terrible thing in the world. After that, I decided maybe it was better not to ask questions. My grandparents are the Fauts live in a housing development near Canary Wharf, right on the banks of the River Thomas. The taxi let us off at the curb, and my dad asked the driver to wait. We were halfway up the walk when Dad froze. He turned and looked behind us. "What?" I asked. Then I saw the man in the trench coat. He was across the street, leaning against the big dead tree. He was barrel-shaped, with skin the color of roasted coffee. His coat and black pinstripe suit looked expensive. He had long braided hair and wore a black fedora pulled down low over his dark round glasses. He reminded me of a musician, the kind my dad would always drag me to see in concert. Even though I couldn't see his eyes, I got the impression he was watching us. He might have been an old friend or colleague of Dad's. No matter where we went, Dad was always running into people he knew. But it did seem strange that the guy was waiting here, outside my grandparents', and he didn't look happy. "Carter," my dad said, "go on ahead. But get your sister."